Hello, welcome back to the channel, and today is the second video of our 10 videos of the best top 10 of the position in the country coming into next year. And this position for college football is going to be the running backs today. We'll start with number 10, Carson Steele. He was the running back for Ball State last season. He's now the running back for the UCLA Bruins. Last year, his stats were, he was the 9th leading rusher in the country, 289 rushes for 1,500 yards. He averaged 5.4 yards a carry with only a long of 48. So he's doing a lot of damage there with 14 touchdowns. Now, he was the 9th leading rusher in the country. He played for Ball State in the MAC. And now he's over at UCLA, so he's got a way better running back, probably system and better players around him. Obviously going against better defenses as well, but he's got a really good offensive line to go behind this year. And as opposed to what he was doing in the MAC, with a good quarterback around him with Dante Moore or potentially the other guy, we're really going to see him be able to have some freedom here, and he'll be able to have some less expected runs because people are loading the box against him at Ball State. Like I said there, he only had a long of 48 yards, which is significantly lower than almost anyone around him in the top here. So he's doing his thing for sure, and it's going to be very interesting to see how he fits in the UCLA system. You kind of think of Chip Kelly as a spray it all over the field guy, but they ran the ball a lot last year. Zach Charbonnet really did his thing, and he got drafted pretty high. I mean, he had 1,300 yards. I'm looking at here, he's the 19th leading rusher. So he had significantly less attempts, 100 less attempts than Carson Steele. So we'll see how it goes. Number 9, we have the son of the legendary Frank Gore Jr. From the Southern Miss Eagles, I believe, Golden Eagles, but I think it's just Eagles. But he comes at number 16 for last year. He had 228 rushes, 1,382 yards, 6.1 average with a 64 long, and only 9 touchdowns. But one of the games that is basically the entire highlights that you're going to be playing right now over me is the highlights of his game in the bowl game. Now, he went crazy. He's 5'9", 185. He's a junior out of Miami. And I was surprised he didn't transfer somewhere else. They ended up playing in the bowl game against Rice. He had 21 carries for 329 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he actually threw for a touchdown. I don't know if that's – let me see if I can get the exact stat here. He was 2 for 3 with 19 yards and a touchdown. So he had a 99 QBR, which is obviously hilarious because it's, the way the stat works. He had a perfect QB rating. But yeah, he did what he had to do, and he's really going to be good again this year in the I believe they're in the Conference USA or they're in the Sun Belt. So we could see him playing against some pretty good opponents this year. Yeah, they play at Florida State. They also play at Mississippi State, and then Tulane as well. So that's 2 Power 5 opponents, and then one probably the best non-Power 5 opponent. So it's really cool to see that we're going to be able to see him on a big stage. And he'll be able to do his thing against some of the biggest colleges. And again, I'm very surprised he didn't transfer. But, credit to him for sticking it out at Southern Miss. Up next, we've got Bucky Irving, the running back for the Oregon Ducks. Now, Bucky didn't have as good of a season as a lot of the other guys, but he did come in with still 1,000 yards rushing. He had 5 touchdowns, averaged 6.8 yards a carry. On 156 carries, he had 1,058 yards, But he was the lowest. No one above him had less attempts. He had the same amount of attempts as Nick Singleton and pretty much the same production. So that will kind of give you a little mindset on what was happening there. Why didn't he get as many touches at Oregon? Well, that was just because Bo Nix ran the ball a lot as well. So kind of what we saw yesterday in the highlights. Also number 8 from Oregon, pretty funny. But there's a lot of running from Bo Nix, so he took up some of those snaps, clearly. So Bucky is looking to return. He's doing his thing. He's going to be one of the top guys drafted this year out of the running back position. He can catch out of the backfield as well. Not as good as some other guys on this list, but pretty good in that. So we'll see how it ends up turning out for him next year, but I think he's one of the top running backs coming back in this year, so that's why he finds himself at number 8 on my list. Up next, we have one of my dark horses for the Heisman. Number 7 running back coming in for the season is Jace McClellan out of Alabama. Now, he's from Aledo, Texas, 5'11", 212. He's going to be a senior this year, so he will be going pro, I would imagine. He had 112 carries for 650 yards and 7 touchdowns. Now, that might not be the best, but he was the backup running back, if not third string at times. So he will now be starting, and that means he will be going forward. And that offensive line is really good. And what we heard from Nick Saban when they talked about Alabama last year, he said we were too Bryce Young-centric, which is code word for we're going to pound the damn rock this year. And who's going to be pounding that rock? Jace McClellan and company, but mostly Jace McClellan. So behind that super good offensive line with a limited quarterback play, they're going to have to run the ball. And I think that all he's going to do is he's just going to keep running and keep running and keep running. So I think it's going to be a pretty important year for Alabama, and they're going to try to get back to the ground and pound they used to do, and that is going to be very much helpful and possible, really, because Jace McClellan is going to be doing this thing. So, obviously, Alabama has had a good string of running backs for pretty much my entire life and most of our lives with Saban. So why not Jace McClellan? He did what he could in limited yardage. He had averaged 5.8 yards a carry, which is very, very, very good. But in his limited time where he was the main back against Austin Peay, he was able to do his thing. He also can receive it out of the backfield pretty well. He had 14 catches for 175 yards. So most of that was, boosted by a 65-yard reception from in the LSU game. But, always got to have one or two there to help the stats out. So up next we got Will Shipley. He's the running back for the Clemson Tigers. He had 210 carries, 1,182 yards, 5.6 yards a carry with 15 touchdowns, so one of the highest scores we've seen so far. That was not the only thing to his game, as he also can receive the ball pretty well. For receiving, he had 36 catches, 242 yards, averaging 6.4 yards a catch. And he also did some returning. He returned 13 kickoffs for 324 yards, including a 69-yard kick return, which would be one of the highlights here. He comes in as a junior. He could go pro, but he might stay, just depending on how it works. But I think that he's one of those guys that he's going to be a Heisman-type candidate, but won't get the recognition he deserves because running backs don't really matter nowadays, if that makes sense. So he's going to be very important with the Clemson this year. Cade and him are going to be running a kind of a read option thing. We kind of saw it a lot in the last two games, but Will Shipley is like a traditional bell cow almost, where like he's going to get a ton of carries, might even be the leading receiver. It reminds me a lot of what Jahmyr Gibbs did last year, just quickly, it's obviously a pretty lazy comparison, but guys could be catching it out of the backfield, running it, sweeps, power, dives, whatever you really need, he kind of can do it all. And his frame is pretty good, obviously, at 5'11", 205 pounds, but he's just one of my guys that I think is super, super good this year, and he comes in at number 6. Number 5, we go back to the SEC, and we find ourselves in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and this will be Raheim Sanders. I believe Raheim Rocket Sanders is his nickname. He had 222 rushes, 1,443 yards, and 10 touchdowns with a long of 76 yards and a 6.5 average. He was really good last year, and what also made it so impressive with his production and amount of attempts is KJ Jefferson is a run-first quarterback. So you had two rushing guys there, and he was able to still get as much production as anybody on this list so far. And that's super impressive, obviously. And he's really getting hyped up for going, to the next season. And I think that obviously Arkansas might have a step down this year. They had, they're kind of in a tough position right now, being basically the worst team in the SEC West, and kind of having to survive in there until the divisions get eliminated and you can play other teams in the bottom half of the SEC East and, up your own game in there. But they've obviously come a long time from being made fun of for never winning and being basically the Vanderbilt of the SEC. Now they've really come up with Sam Pittman and these guys. And you look at KJ Jefferson and Raheim Sanders, and that's probably one of the best quarterback running back duos. I'm not nearly as high on them as they are. I'm not high on Raheim Sanders personally, but it's you can't deny the production and how many times he's been able to run the ball this year. So kind of the perks of having a big O-line coach as your head coach is you're going to run the damn ball a lot. So Raheim comes in at number 5 for me. Now we've got a man I mentioned previously, and it's really hard to add him in and not talk about his other guy with him, is Nick Singleton from Penn State. Obviously, the other guy is Creighton Allen, and I wanted to put him, he's probably 11 on my list, to be completely honest with you. But Nick Singleton comes in, he had 156 carries, he had 1,061 yards, 6.8 yards per carry, 87 it was his long, with 12 touchdowns. So he was the better of the two running backs, and let me see even what Allen had if he pops up on this list. He had 167 carries for 887 yards, 5.2 average, 59 long, 10 touchdowns. So they had a ton of production between the two. But Nick obviously had the edge there. And now looking at what Nick did last year, he was really the top running back, right? Obviously. And he split carry. It's kind of like a Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards situation. And that's really the quick comparison you can do there. Now, obviously, JJ didn't run as much as Sean Clifford would like to run, so there was a bit of run production taken away from there. But behind a better offensive line, I think that these two are going to absolutely excel and exceed this year. That being said, is it going to be, is he going to end up in like top 3 or 4 running backs in the conference? Probably. I don't have Braylon Allen on here, and that might be a big miss because I don't think with his system that he's going into now at Wisconsin, he's really going to be able to get the touches he needs. But Nick Singleton, behind the big offensive tackle, they're going to get drafted. Olu Fashanu, I think his name is. They got a really good offensive line in general. And with a better quarterback in Drew Aller who can throw the ball a bit more, he might open up the play-action game and, help unload the box where he can start running the ball as much as he was previously. So I'm very excited to see what Penn State does this year. Obviously not too much against Michigan, but every other game he can go crazy. That's okay by me. The top 3 here we have, starting off at number 3, my guy, Donovan Edwards, the Don, as he was called in his crazy touchdown run against Ohio State. 5-star recruit. He came in. He's a sophomore, but now he's going to be a junior, clearly, because that's kind of how that works. He's out of West Bloomfield, Michigan, 6'1", 210. He runs angry, and I always say it's funny because he's got the helmet. He's got like that big concussion-proof helmet, I think it is, and it like looks like he's always like angry when he's running. It's like because it's like slanted down. I don't know if it makes any sense, but looking at it, he had 140 carries for 991 yards, 7.1 yards per carry, 85 yards was his long against Ohio State with 7 touchdowns. He really took over when Blake Corum went down for the year, and not necessarily technically speaking the year because he played a snap against Ohio State, but he went down for the year after the Illinois game, and he missed a bunch of games himself. He was hurt with a hand injury and a torn patella tendon, and so I want you to think about, most of you guys know Donovan Edwards, and you're probably like, oh, he's the better running back out of the two, because the games most of you guys nationally watched were Ohio State and TCU and Purdue, where he had his 3 best games by far, right? He also can receive like nobody's business, but he had a broken hand in that game and had torn patella tendon. So he had a hurt knee and a broken hand while he was doing those crazy things against Ohio State, against TCU, and against Purdue. So that's why he's so high on my list, is if he's healthy, which he is, and he stays healthy, watch out, man, because he can do just as good damage as Blake Corum can. But yeah, Donovan Edwards, as opposed to Blake Corum, can receive it as well, and is a bit quicker, I would say. He's faster, and he can receive it way better. So Donovan Edwards might play a little bit of reception role. I'm saying if Donovan Edwards plays a Jahmyr Gibbs or Will Shipley type role, he will not win the Heisman, but Michigan will win the national championship. So that's just my humble opinion. Number 2, we have the guy that I really do like the most on this list probably, and if I was drafting somebody, I would take him. I would take Donovan first, him second, but we have Ole Miss's Quinshon Judkins. Now this guy here, 274 carries, ton by the way, 1,567 yards, 5.7 average, 61 long, and 16 touchdowns. This dude got in the end zone a lot. He really did that a lot, and he ran the ball a ton. When you really think of Lane Kiffin, I know a lot of people think of like this offensive-minded genius. They're just going to spray the ball over the field. That was the farthest thing from the case last year. They did have production from the under the quarterback, or under center, I guess I could say, or in shotgun, but they also ran the ball a ton, clearly. I mean, 274 times with him, and they also had Zach Evans run the ball a ton. I don't even know what his stats are. Let me see if I can get him real quick. Zach Evans, he ran the ball 144 times. So that's touching 400 times, and it is 400 times between the two of them. So that right there shows you that they ran the ball like nobody's business. And they probably continue to next year, even though they brought in a bunch of other receiver transfers and quarterback guys and a good transfer tight end. They're still going to run the ball. And their run first team, Lane Kiffin, I don't think has really done that in a long time. He adapted the modern game, but it was like, look, this guy's too good not to do it. So he'll be running like nobody's business. I'm excited to see what he does the SEC this year. And if they're going to beat a team like Georgia, his insane level of play at the running back position is going to be a major reason why. So, and finally, kind of obviously, if you know how this list goes, we have Blake Corum. Number 1, should have won the Heisman if he didn't get injured based on the way the voting was projecting out. He had 247 carries, 1,463 yards, 5.9 average, 61 yards, and 18 touchdowns. So a lot of scoring there for him as well. And factor this in, he didn't play the final 3 games of the season. He was out against Ohio State. He was out against TCU, out against Purdue, and in the second half of Indiana or Illinois as well. So he missed 3.5 games and still put up this crazy production. He would have probably gotten to 2,000 yards. I don't think it would have been crazy to think about that in those games. I mean, look at what Donovan Edwards did. Blake Corum would have done the same. So Corum is a really short back. What is he? I think he's like 5'4". Let's see what he's actually listed as. He is listed at 5'8", which is aggressive. 5'8", 213. So he's built like a truck, super low to the ground, low center of gravity, hard to bring down. And what he does differently than Donovan Edwards catches the ball more of a finesse back. Blake Corum's a power back. Between the tackles, he'll do his thing. He doesn't have crazy breakaway speed anymore. He's had a little bit too many injuries to keep that speed. He got hurt again last year. He was hurt the year before. So if he gets a full season where he isn't hurt, that'd be great. I don't know if he's going to get the load that he wants and probably deserves at Michigan this year, because they're going to be like, okay, let's kind of not try to get him to win the Heisman. Let's not overuse him, drive him into the ground, and he gets hurt. They're going to try to obviously keep it going. A lot of people were surprised he came back, including myself, but it's great to have him back for sure. He will probably, be first-team All-American, I'd imagine. And again, I don't know if his stats will be great this year, but he will definitely be the best running back in the country. His ability to get forward and fall forward, always fall forward, he gets these short yardage. Like, it's crazy. I was saying to these my friends, with behind Michigan's offensive line, in addition to how good he is, it's like an automatic get. Anything like 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, he gets every time, and it's crazy. I've never like you don't even have to worry about it. It's just something I've never experienced at Michigan recently with a guy that's this good in short yardage. Obviously, Michigan's got really good backs, but short yardage with the offensive line and him combined, he gets it every time, and it's crazy. I wish I could get the stats or some analytics of like the success rate of Blake Corum's rushes in like 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. I'm telling you, it's at 80, 85%. It's unbelievable, man. Shout out to him. And that's the end of our list. So let me know down below if there's anybody I missed, anything that you think I should have had on this list as opposed to. I know Braylon Allen's a big miss, Creighton Allen. Brandon and Creighton, I guess I would say the Allens are big misses. But yeah, let me know if down below if I missed anyone, and comment down below what your favorite running backs are. And we'll see you guys next time. Like and subscribe. Peace.